have turned my mourning into dancing. You have removed my sackcloth again.
Archbishop Dominiquae Bierman has traveled the world for over 3 decades proclaiming the gospel from Zion to the nations with miracles following. She exposes the false doctrines of replacement theology and preaches restoration to the Jewish Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach.
I will proclaim to the nations your salvation, your soon return to Jerusalem. I will declare your holy name, Yeshua, and your love. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Leolam Vaed Leolam Vaed Leolam Vaed. Welcome to the Banias or to the Banias area. We're going to talk about what Banias or Banias really mean, and where is it coming from, and what do we find here. But first we're going to deal with the most important thing that ever happened here. The most important thing that ever happened here is that Yeshua was walking with his disciples, his Jewish disciples, and it is here that revealed himself as the Messiah. It is here that he revealed himself as the one that has the keys of the kingdom, and he can give them to whomever he wishes. It is here that he reveals himself and shone like the sun, and went up into a mountain, a high mountain in this area called Caesarea Philippi, and he was transfigured in front of his 3 closest disciples. It was here that Moses or Moshe and Eliyahu, Moses and Elijah appeared to him, knowing therefore that Moses and Elijah are alive. So this is the most important thing that happened here. Other things that have happened here are not so stellar, and we're going to talk about them. They happened much before the revelation of the Messiah here in Caesarea Philippi and in Mount of Transfiguration. For this whole area, we still have the reminiscent of the temples to the Pan God, which is the god of nature, the god of the wild, and he's kind of a half fawn and half goat. And to Heliopolis, or Zeus, Jupiter. And therefore we had a major temple to Jupiter in this area, and not far away from this area, in the area of Baalbek, that is in southern Lebanon. We're going to take a look at some things, and some of these things I'm mentioning as foreign temples. They were actually aligned with Egypt and Egyptian worship. As usual, we know that in the spiritual realm, any kind of satanic worship is always trying to align itself in kind of points, from one part of the world to another. So now, first of all, we will start with the good stuff, and then we will move to the other stuff, because I believe that the good news are first. So let's start with the good stuff, and we'll go to Matthew 16, 13 to 20. When Yeshua came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" Ben Ha'adam, the son of Adam. They answered, "Some say Yochanan John, the immerser. Others say Eliyahu, Elijah. And still others say Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets. He said, but who do you say that I am? Shimon Peter answered, you are the Mashiach. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Yeshua said to him, blessed are you, Shimon bar Yonah, Simon the son of Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal it to you, but my Abba, my Father who is in heaven, my Abba Sheba Shamayim. And I also tell you that you are Peter, and upon this rock, and there is a rock up there, right before the altar of Pan, and right before the altar of Zeus, and right before the Byzantine church that was built on top of the altar of Pan and Zeus, keeping those altars as part of the worship of the Byzantine church. Then you saw a rock in there. The rock was there even at the time that Yeshua was walking here, and he told Peter, he said, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, that I'm the Messiah, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also tell you that you are Peter, that means little rock, and upon this rock, and he pointed to this big rock, I will build my community, which people call my church, but it's really a community of believers. It's not a building, it's a community of believers, of living stones. I will build my community of living stones. I will build my place of worship. I will build my living temple. And that makes more sense even because all these altars to the foreign gods were there when he was speaking this thing. And he was saying, I will build my community of living stones based upon this rock. And he probably pointed to this big massive rock that's there before the temples so that people would have a notion of a big rock. He always was showing things in the land that people could have a notion of what did he really mean by that. And the gates of Sheol, and then he mentioned something else. He said the gates of Sheol will not overpower it. In other translation, it says the gates of hell will not prevail against it. In other translations, it says the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. And you need to understand that he chose this place on purpose, because this place was probably one of the most, if not the most, ancient portal in the world. In fact, this is the portal that I believe was, and I am going to try to at least show you some elements that show us that this hypothesis is actually quite based on a lot of facts, that the event of Genesis 6, when the fallen angels that Elohim calls in Genesis 6 the sons of God, came down and mated with the daughters of men, which today we have some basis to believe that these particular daughters of men were Cain's daughters, or were the women from the line of Cain that was accursed. So, most probably the portal or the gateway or the stargate, as sci-fi calls it, from where these fallen angels came could have been around this area, if not right here, at the foot of Mount Hermon that is above us. We know that Enoch, the book of Enoch 1, the Ethiopic book of Enoch, that excerpts of it have been found even in Qumran, not the whole thing. I know the whole thing is probably found in Syria, but in Qumran we have excerpts of it. In the same place of the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have excerpts of the book of Enoch that actually reminds us of this happening between the fallen angels that he called the Watchers and the daughters of men, which were most probably the daughters of Cain, the accursed line, that mated together, and they bore Nephilim. They bore giants. Do you understand that the normal human, a wife or woman, is not built to bear a giant. Therefore, according to what Enoch tells us in the first book of Enoch, there is other versions of Enoch, but I like to relate to the one that I deem to be much more faithful to reality because it quotes the scriptures. That Enoch, that was such a righteous man in the line of Noah, well, Noah was in the line of Enoch, that he, in his first version, or the Ethiopic version, I believe that he gave us a lot of insights about what really happened here. And some of the things that he said were that when the women were given birth, their wombs ripped open. And I believe they would have, and they died, the women died, because they are not built to bear Nephilim or any kind of giants. We are not we are just geared into bearing human beings. But in this case, there was a mixed breed that came into the earth between the fallen angels, or the watchers. Remember that word, the watchers, because these fallen angels were of the highest category of angels. They were the ones that in the book of Daniel are called the watchers. They are the ones that in the book of Daniel, the watchers are the ones that proclaim and declare that Nebuchadnezzar would become the king of Babylon, that did not worship the Most High, would become like an animal, and he would be eating grass for 7 years. Those were these kind of angels, the watchers, the ones that fell, the ones that followed Satan. That a third of them followed Satan, according to Revelation 12. They were of the highest caliber of angels. They were the watchers. They were the ones that when the council of, and the word talks about the angelic council got together, the Almighty conferred with those angels and gave instructions to those angels, and they're the ones that rebelled. They're the ones that came down. And according to what I've read also, that they came down at the time that this particular son of Shet was born. The son of Shet that was born was Yared. You see, Shet was the son that was given to Adam and Eve instead of Abel. Righteous Abel was murdered by Cain, and then he gave them Shet, right? And so Shet was given to them, and from the line of Shet eventually comes Noah, and all of humanity can be redeemed because of Shet that comes in. That's the good line. That's the holy line. That's the righteous line. And that continues on to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Judah and David and the Messiah. That line had to come forth because of the Messiah that would come exactly to this place where the act of treason took place, and where he had the prophet representing all the prophets, Eliyahu, Elijah, and the deliverer of Israel, the highest authority that brings in the Torah, Moses, meeting with him in this place, because this place was a portal. Now, it was not a portal, it is a portal. This place is a portal. And here we have, as I said, at the time that the fallen angels came down, the watchers came down, mated with the women of Cain, of the line of Cain, for which reason eventually Noah's generation had to be all destroyed underwater, because the mixed breed between the women of Cain and the watchers was roaming the earth, and even the animals were defiled because they were mating with animals as well. So you can imagine the disgusting thing that happened here. Therefore, it is believed that it is the time of Yared, because Yared means descending or coming down. And it might very well be that the name of that son of Shet, Yared, would actually chronicle the fact that at this time, those watchers, those fallen angels came down and mated with the daughters of men. I just want you to keep that in your mind right now. But I want to talk more about Yeshua and what he did here. So he chooses this place being a portal, the portal that saw the highest treason. Some scholars believe that the Garden of Eden might have been in this area too. In fact, we have actually walked throughout all of Israel. Tell me if this place doesn't qualify to look more like a Garden of Eden than anything else we've seen in Israel until now. Another thing that we also see that's very, very interesting is that we have a lot of what? A lot of fig trees. What did Adam and his wife cover themselves when they sinned and they broke the commandment, which was the first dietary commandment that was given of don't eat of that fruit, eat only of the rest of the fruit. Only one tree not to eat, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So I'm sure they didn't run from where they were to an olive tree or to a pomegranate tree or to a mango tree. I'm sure that wherever they listened to the snake, wherever they grabbed the fruit from, once they were stricken with the fact that they were naked and that they had sinned against the Almighty, and now the presence of Yah and His glory had been removed from them, then most probably they grabbed the first leaf that they would have found, and most probably therefore the tree that Yeshua curses is a fig tree. Most probably we're dealing with a fig tree being at that time the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, it's interesting that in this area, the fig fruit doesn't grow. But the fig fruit does grow everywhere else in Israel, but not here. And you wonder to yourself, how come that the fig fruit doesn't grow here? Now, could it be that we are like in the antechamber of the entrance of the place where maybe the Garden of Eden is, and the cherubim with the flaming swords are guarding so we don't go in and get from the tree of life? It could be. We do not know, but we do know that this portal that was here and that is still here saw the highest treason at the foot of Mount Hermon. Now, I'm going to tell you one more thing, that in southern Lebanon, which is a few minutes away from here, about 2 kilometers away from here, we are in Lebanon. Okay, what do we have in Lebanon? Tyre and Sidon. I want you to remember those names. Southern Lebanon is the closest to our area. In southern Lebanon, there is an area called Baalbek. And Baalbek has the largest temple to Jupiter in the world. It is the largest temple, Heliopolis it is called, but it's the largest Heliopolis, a largest temple to Zeus built by the Romans in the entire world. Now, you know, seeing that the Roman Empire covered all of Europe and the Middle East and whatever, why would they choose to put their largest, biggest temple here and let's say not in Rome? Because this portal was the portal of descent of the fallen angels, and therefore they knew that this was the place where the gods Zeus and Baal and Pan and every other god in the pantheon would be worshipped to receive the most power to rule in the Roman Empire. So that's in southern Lebanon, in Baalbek, the largest one. And this whole area is kind of like, very much in the vicinity. All of it, Caesarea Philippi, Banias, Baalbek, all of this area. Now, think about this. In Baalbek, they discovered recently 3 huge megaliths. You know what's a megalith? A megalith is a huge, massive stone, but like not made out of little stones or cut stones, but one piece. So a megalith is a mega huge stone of one piece. One of them weighs about 1,240 tons. Please try to wrap your head around it. 1,240 tons. Another one, the largest one of them, it weighs about 1,700 and something tons. Now, there is absolutely no way for any kind of human device to lift up 1,200 or 1,700 tons. So that poses the question of who put those megaliths in there? Good question, isn't it? But I'm going to tell you what's even more interesting. Again, if I don't manage to tell you the whole story, at least you can go research it yourself. But the name of the megalith there is called the pregnant woman. Wow, interesting. The pregnant woman. And we are trying to trace the name of this megal. I think the one that is 1240 is the one that's called the pregnant woman. We are trying to trace the fact of where is the name coming from, the pregnant woman. So according to some, fables and local traditions there among the Lebanese, they say that it's because there was a pregnant woman that promised, that she was very pregnant, promised that if they will help her, because she was pregnant and she was suffering, listen well to the story, that if then the people of the area will actually help her as she's giving birth, she will make sure that that big stone can be lifted up and removed to another place. Now think about it. Let's say there was a pregnant woman, really, because names carry some traditions. Let's say there was a pregnant woman that was from the line of Cain, that was pregnant from the fallen angels, the watchers, and her womb was reaping as she's giving birth because it's a giant, and she's screaming and crying out, "Help me, help me, help me." Could that be possible? Yes, it can be possible. And she therefore knew that a giant was coming out of her. Could it be that then she promised, "He will help you to lift up this stone later on"? Possible, because the only ones that could lift up this kind of stones were nothing but the Nephilim, or the fallen angels themselves that were the fathers of the Nephilim. So isn't that amazing that in a place where most probably Genesis 6, the mating between the daughters of Cain and the sons of Elohim, they were called the holy watchers, that were the fallen angels, that in this same area we will have a place with these megaliths that are the largest megaliths in the world. There's nothing bigger as these massive stones. And so that, when you begin to join the points and the dots, it gives you an idea that we are in a very profound, prophetic, important place on earth right now, because all the destruction, the death, hell, and the grave, and the destruction that happens in the world has come from this portal. All of it. During the time of Noah, we know that Noah's generation was destroyed because they were wicked all day long. And the question is, why were they wicked all day long? What makes a human being wicked all day long? And then they didn't have a conscience and they were corrupt. And Elohim decided to wipe out the entire generation underwater. Then we go to Matthew 24 and we hear, just like during the days of Noah, it will be again now as well in the end of times. But what caused the destruction in the days of Noah was that there was a mixed breed. A mixed breed that roamed the earth, that kept on mating, kept on mixing, kept on hybriding, and both human and animals, and that's why Yahweh in the Torah forbids, for example, bestiality, because bestiality was already happening. So the sons, the mixed breed of the sons of the fallen angels together with the women of Cain, they kept on mating with other human beings and with other animals until finally the generation was unredeemable. I assure you that Elohim doesn't wipe out an entire generation because he doesn't have anything better to do. It's because that entire generation was unredeemable. And for him to tell us that in the end of times, in Matthew 24, it's going to be just like at the times of Noah, it's telling us that the same thing that happened during the times of Noah will happen again in the end of times. In other words, I believe that still there are fallen angels that are mating with the women. Now, a third of the angels were thrown down from heaven. But remember that also Paul tells us something about the powers and the principalities that are in the heavenly realms. So we know that in the second heavens we have a position of Satan and his honchos right there in the second heaven. That means that if they're coming back and up and down from the second heaven to the earth, they need to enter through some portals. Could they be using the same portal that was used thousands of years ago before the flood? Yes, they could be using, because it is the portal. Maybe they're using other portals as well. Could it be that this portal has been used again and again and again and again throughout the generations? It is possible. That means that those angels, the fallen angels that mated with the women of Cain, were not all the third of the angels, were just a few of them. And in fact, Enoch tell us that there was only a few of them that came down, that did that, and they were afterwards put actually in the pit. They were put under the ground, and they kept in prison until the judgment. Those are put in prison. But the other ones that are in the second heavens with Satan, they're not in prison yet. They will be in prison for 1,000 years, when the devil is going to be chained for 1,000 years at the time of the millennium, when Yeshua returns. But right now they are not in prison. They are in the second heaven. And you know what Ecclesiastes says? There is absolutely nothing new under the sun. Whatever was done before is done today, will be done tomorrow. And so technically speaking, the history has been repeating itself. When we were in Jerusalem, I mentioned that it's very easy to go into all the scriptures and find out that Canaan was full of giants. And when the Israelites come into the land of Canaan is totally polluted by these giants and by the fallen angels that have mated with the Canaanite women. In this case was from the line of Ham through the son of Ham, Canaan. And so this has been happening again, and it's happening today. Again, can it be from this portal? The thing is that Yeshua chose this portal to reveal that he is the Son of Elohim, that he is the Messiah, hallelujah, and that upon the rock of revelation, that he is the Savior, that he is the Messiah, that he is the kinsman redeemer, that he is the King of kings, that he is the Lord of lords, that he is above Pan and Zeus and Jupiter and all those fallen angels. The place where he chose to reveal that was right here in Caesarea Philippi, in a mountain that we call the Mount of Transfiguration.
It's my honor and privilege to tell you about this magnificent tour that we've just been on through Kadesh Map Ministries. My ability to come on this tour was one miracle after the other from Holy Spirit. And it was important that I was here. I know that now. Archbishop led us on a commando tour to intercede, to pray in every area of Israel. And we did it.
If you enjoyed today's program, support this broadcast by donating to kad-esh.org. To connect with us, write to info@kad-esh.org. We would love to hear from you.
Spirit like water, Adonai, anoint your bride.